In recent years, more and more Americans have found themselves asking a simple but emotional question. What happened to the America we grew up in? The America of the 1950s, or, for some, the early 1960s. The neighborhoods where everybody seemed to know each other, where front doors were left unlocked, where children played outside until the streetlights came on, and where life felt, at least in memory, simpler, slower, and safer. Today, I want to take you on a journey back to that time, not just to remember it, but to understand what made that era feel the way it did, why so many people long for it today, and why the memories remain so powerful even as the world has changed. For many Americans who grew up in that period, the 1950s weren't just a decade. They were a feeling of coming home from school, dropping your books at the door, and hearing the sound of your mother cooking dinner in the kitchen. A feeling of riding your bike through the neighborhood and finding your friends without needing a phone, an app, or a text message. A feeling of walking into a local diner, the bell on the door ringing as you stepped inside, and the waitress already knowing your order before you sat down. These memories don't just live in photographs or movies. They live in the hearts of millions of people who still remember the warmth of that world. But nostalgia is a powerful thing. It softens the edges of the past and sometimes hides the challenges that existed. So today we're not just going to look at the memories, we're going to talk about the reality too. What made the 1950s feel so special? Why does that era still hold such a strong place in people's minds? And what happened along the way that made America feel so different today? Let's begin with community, because if there is one thing nearly everyone from that generation mentions, it's that sense of togetherness. In the 1950s, neighborhoods were more than just places to live. They were small ecosystems of relationships, routines, and unspoken rules. Families often knew every person on the street, every child, every dog, every elderly couple. You didn't just live near your neighbors, you lived with them in a sense. You borrowed sugar from next door, you shared tools, you helped each other repaint fences or push out a stuck car after a winter storm. There was a sense of trust that is much harder to find today. The reasons weren't magical, they were cultural. Most families ate dinner at the same time every evening, usually together, at the table. Weekends were predictable. Church on Sunday, maybe a family drive, maybe a visit to grandparents. Kids played outside because entertainment options were limited. There were no cell phones, no internet, no endless stream of content designed to keep you indoors. The world was big, the streets were safe enough, and childhood happened on playgrounds, in backyards, and in imagination. Many people also remember the 1950s as a time of economic optimism. After World War II, America was booming. Jobs were plentiful, wages were rising. A single income could support an entire family, buy a home, and even save for the future. The average home cost less than what a mid-range used car costs today. Suburbs were expanding rapidly, and owning a house with a yard wasn't considered a luxury. It was the norm. That stability allowed families to feel secure in ways that have become rare today. But the nostalgia doesn't end there. There was also the culture, the music, the fashion, the rise of television, the birth of rock and roll, the charm of diners, drive-in theaters, soda fountains, and radio shows that brought families together in the evenings. Life wasn't perfect, but it was structured. It had rhythm. And for many people, that predictable rhythm brought comfort and peace. So, what happened? How did we go from that world of neighborhood bonds and door-to-door friendships to the modern America many people feel disconnected from? The shift didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, shaped by 1,000 small changes. One of the biggest transformations was technology. While technology has brought remarkable benefits, it also changed how people interact with one another. Televisions pulled people indoors. Later, the internet pulled them onto screens. Smartphones made face-to-face conversations optional. Social media replaced community with connectivity, something that looks similar but feels very different. Another major shift was economic. The cost of living rose dramatically. Wages did not keep up. Housing became more expensive, especially in cities and suburbs. Families began to rely on 2 incomes instead of 1. And with that change came less time together. Less time for neighbors, less time for slow evenings on the porch, less time for shared meals. Mobility also played a role. In the 1950s, people tended to live close to where they were born. Today, Americans move far more often, sometimes across the country for jobs or affordability. When people don't stay in one place long enough to build deep roots, neighborhoods lose their stability. But maybe the biggest factor was cultural. Society shifted from valuing community to valuing individuality. Convenience replaced connection. Privacy replaced neighborliness. People became more independent, more self-sufficient, more private, and sometimes more isolated. And yet, here's the most interesting part. When people talk about the 1950s today, they aren't really talking about the economy or the technology or even the politics. They're talking about the feeling of belonging, the feeling of safety, the feeling of knowing who you are and where you come from, the feeling of sitting at a kitchen table with people you love, knowing that tomorrow will look pretty much like today, and that was a good thing. So the question becomes, was the America of the 1950s truly a better time? Or do we simply miss the parts of it that made us feel human? The truth is somewhere in the middle. The 1950s weren't perfect. They were complicated, like every era. But for the people who lived through them, the memories captured something that goes beyond statistics. They captured a time when life felt slower, connections felt deeper, and the future felt brighter. And maybe that's why the nostalgia is so strong today, because the world feels uncertain, fast, and sometimes overwhelming. But here's something important to remember. Many of the things people miss about the 1950s can still exist today. We can still build community. We can still slow down. We can still make time for people, for conversations, for the small rituals that make life meaningful. We don't need to go back in time to rebuild the parts of that era that mattered most. We just need to remember that relationships, not technology, are what define a good life. So if you've ever found yourself longing for the America you grew up in, you're not alone. Millions of people feel the same. The memories are real, the nostalgia is real, and the desire to reconnect with those feelings is real. The past may be gone, but its lessons are still here. And perhaps the real question isn't what happened to the America of the 1950s, but what parts of that America can we bring into our lives today? Thank you for taking this journey with me. If these memories resonate with you, if this story reminded you of your own childhood or your own family traditions, consider joining our community. There are many more stories to tell, many more eras to explore, and together we can keep these memories alive. If these memories touched your heart, consider joining our community here at AmeriRetro. Together, we keep the stories of yesterday alive, one memory at a time. Subscribe to AmeriRetro for more journeys into America's past. And let's keep these memories alive together.